They pick that up.
Oh.
Just kidding.
All right.
Do it again. Okay.
One, two, three.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody, to the Audiation Station podcast. I'm your host, Parker John. Today, I'm joined by an insanely talented DJ, 87 Dove.
What's up?
We got some drinks and we got to take care of business here first. So give us a
Yes,
sec.
sir. Let's do it. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here.
Oh, appreciate it, dude.
Ooh, that was a thick one.
I just wanted to let's start from the very beginning. Like, where did your music journey stem from? How did you get into it? All those things.
Yeah. My life's kind of always gravitated towards music. I never thought that I really chose music. I started when I was probably like, I remember just like listening to hip hop and rap when I was a young kid. And I loved listening to house music back then too, although it wasn't really like in my wheelhouse. It wasn't around me. Like in the areas I grew up, house music wasn't really a thing. Or electronic music, for instance, unless it was on the radios, like, Much Dance kind of style, but which was also really popular back then. But yeah, I got into actually rapping. I was a rapper when I was like 14 or 15. And that kind of led me down a path into connecting with other producers and rappers and DJs. And yeah, I took audio production school as a vocation in high school because my high school offered it in Winnipeg. And that's where I kind of like first saw like vinyl DJ equipment. Sorry, this is my dog Jody.
Hey, shout out Jody.
She really likes to get involved with everything. But yeah, that's where I first got my start into learning a lot about music. Babe, can you call Jody? Oh, well,
That's all good. Yeah, it's all good.
So yeah, that's how I kind of got my start in music. And then I got DJ equipment probably about 17, 18 years old. And I just used to play around with it. It was just always in the studios where I was rapping. And before you knew it, I started DJing. And, I fell in love with electronic music probably around 20 years old. I went to a Dead Mouse concert in Kelowna. It was at the Prospera Place. And I probably did, my first substance in the electronic scene for the first time. And I remember seeing the lights and seeing the music. And, it just resonated so well with me. And then from that day on, I don't think I listened to hip hop much. I did listen to hip hop as I kind of like went through the club scene back in those days. But, that's when kind of electronic music and the vibes really took over my life at that point. Yeah.
Your first set of decks, were they like Pioneer or were they, what was the, do you remember?
They were old Pioneer CDJs, were the first ones I played with. But to be honest, my first set of decks that I owned was a Newmark IDJ2. So this is like the old school iPod Classic. It was actually, if I wish I could get my hands on one of those again, but you used to plug in your iPod into the middle of it and you could load tracks into each side. It was super technical, super like digitally advanced for the time.
Yeah.
But I used to have my iPod Classic. I loaded it up and I started DJing like party buses and party cruises in Kelowna. And people were like, "Oh man, it's so cool you're DJing." And I don't know if you ever heard of Conroe. Have you ever heard of Conroe?
No.
He's done quite well for himself. He's out of Kelowna. He had some major releases, and I used to DJ with him in the clubs back then. But I remember just like a weird moment where like I was just starting out using my Newmark IDJ2, and he was like starting to blow up. His songs were getting played at Tomorrowland. And I remember he came on the party bus one time and I was like, "Look, Connor, I'm beat matching 2 songs." And he's like, "Yeah, I hear you. I hear it, Jamal." And I was like, "It's so crazy." And then it's just wild to see like how much the progression from there has gotten to like, where I'm at now. And now I have so many decks. I have CDJs, I have XDJs, I have turntables, I have everything at this point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's always just interesting because my first set of decks was Tractor. And like, everybody just, you don't really know where to start when you first get into something. And it's like, I think the one you're talking about when you plug your iPod in, kind of looks like a PS2, right? Or a PS1.
Yeah, it's like a square thing.
Yeah. And like the little round little dials on it. And
yeah. That's exactly it. And you know what? In the beginning, even what I tell DJs now when they want to get into the scene, because I'll have a million people come up to me. They're like, "Jamal, I want to learn how to DJ." And I'm like, "That's cool." I remember when I wanted to learn how to DJ, but if you really want to learn how to DJ, then you just got to show up. Like you can tell me till the cows come home, "Hey, I want to learn how to DJ." You can have a dream about it or say you want to do it. But at the end of the day, you just got to show up and be there, hang out with DJs, be around DJs. When someone's in the studio and they invite you, like, "Hey, I'm at the studio," or "I'm playing with these decks here," or "I'm at this guy's house who has decks," even if it's inconvenient, go out of your way and just start learning and start getting out there. And then when DJs see that you're putting in the work and that you actually care, then they're happy to show you everything that they know. But we don't want to just give away all the information and all the clues and all the stuff that we had to like try so hard to learn to people who are just trying to take advantage of the community, or they're just not serious about it. And everybody has their different levels of commitment to it. But for my advice is just show up. If you want to learn, just be there. Show up to shows, show up to DJ's gigs, and we'll appreciate that so much that we'll be happy to show you everything that we know.
Yeah. And it's funny how like showing up is such a big ask nowadays.
Yeah.
Like just to like, hey, be here at this time. And some people can't even handle that. And it's like, hey, you're serious about, you want to learn how to DJ? Okay, well, I'm putting on a masterclass 8 p.m. here. And then half the people don't even show up because they're like, well, I don't want to go. Because it's just like,
it's the same thing even with DJs that are already established in the scene or venues. People are always like, hey, Jamal, can I get on this event? Can I DJ here? Can I DJ there? And I'm like, hey man, like I got 10 other DJs that show up to every event and they're supporting, and whether they buy tickets or they repost a story or they share something, and I'm like, you have to give those people chances before the people who are just want to get an opportunity and just show up for it. Yeah. So, like I said, another piece of advice is if you want to get on lineups and stuff, just show up, go to shows, say hi to DJs, like after their set, be like, hey man, that was an amazing set. Don't lie to people if it wasn't great,
yeah.
But because we all need constructive criticism. But yeah, I think this community, the biggest thing that we're just expecting out of people is just show up for each other, because we all need it.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off that, because you said if you want to like get gigs or get shows, and like for the audience, like Jamal, like 87 Dub, Jamal, he's open for Sam Divine, Martin Horger, West End, Jay Hora, like Tool Room and Mark Knight, like such a diverse range, and like he's no amateur to opening for big like big scene, big dogs in the scene right now. And do you think that's like kind of the keystone to getting those, or just like showing up, or what, or is there another component to that a little bit?
Well, I think the reason I've gotten these opportunities is like there's probably just so many different little things that have got me the opportunities that I've got now. But I think it does boil down to just showing up, showing up for people, showing up to other shows, and being supportive in the industry. What we'll find a lot in the industry is, it's hard to see other people succeed. It's hard to see other people do better than you. It's hard to see people put in the work at times, and that can give people the wrong outlook, and they can build resentment, or they can build jealousy and envy. And these are all normal feelings to have. Everybody feels them at times. They're like, oh man, this person's doing really good. I wish I was there. I wish I was doing good. And if you start resorting to tearing down the community, being like, oh, they only got this, like, people hate on girls all the time. They're like, oh, they're only getting these gigs because they're pretty or they're beautiful. And I'm like, no, man, they're DJing their ass off, and they're putting in work, and they're showing up. And then they'll be like, oh, Jamal's only getting these because, he goes out all the time and he's popular and he's been DJing for so long, or this, and like, there's just a million reasons why people will make excuses of why you're being successful. But, the thing is, just support the community, show love to everybody, come up with a positive outlook. If you see somebody that's really crushing it and you're having a hard time understanding why they're being more successful than you, take that as a reason to work harder and be like, hey, what are they doing that I'm not doing? What can I do? And if you lead with that kind of heart, and if you lead with like a good mindset, I feel like the opportunities will definitely start coming your way. But as soon as the people start kind of like shitting on the industry and doing the woe is me, and I'm not getting this because of this or this and that, then, that negative energy, it turns like, and that goes for any industry, even as friendships, like, that one person who's always being negative, you don't want to be around them. And so when people start kind of falling victim to like, feeling like, like things aren't deserved for other people, and you start getting upset with the industry, then that kind of bleeds out of your energy, and then it starts to turn people off from you. So, just show up and be happy to be there. Be happy that people are doing their things. And, most people will be like, hey, like, instead of being like, why are they getting these opportunities? Just go talk to them. Be like, hey, how are you getting these opportunities? What can I do? Is there a way I can help you? And then, like, if somebody's doing that to me, then, when I'm talking to a big booker, I'm like, hey, like, this kid's really, really helping us out. When this show wasn't doing too well, and you said, hey, Jamal, we need a lot more people here. and you said, start bumping up the guest list, 3 days before the show. And this guy's like, hey, like, I can bring 10 of my friends, Jamal. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go. When that guy's looking for a gig, I can like, confidently be like, hey man, this person's really putting in the work. So I'd love to see them get opportunities too. So yeah, I know I kind of rambled on and got away from
you're
I
good.
know like you ask questions and then I kind of like lead off into a
Dude,
bunch of
go on a
different things.
tangent. Go on a tangent.
Yeah.
You started DJing. You got your decks on the Nano when you're 17.
Yeah. I would say probably like, around 18, 19 when I got my IDJ too. And then before that, I was just like playing around with decks and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah. Because I was going to say is that's so important to emphasize because decks at 17, 18, got serious DJing 18, 19. And I think like you have already accomplished so many things that people dream about. And there's more work to do, right? There's more work to do, but you're right now you're killing it. And I think it's important to keep going. And it's funny to combat those negative talks of, oh, he's only got that because of this. But like people don't realize is like, dude, I've been doing this shit since I was doing 18. Like forget about I just come up, right? Like I've been doing this shit. You know what I mean? Like,
and it's like with that said too, like, I've been DJing my whole life. I've been in music my whole life. And, I don't want to, do the math, 87 Dove. I don't know if you guys can figure it out, but if I've been started when I was 18, that means I've been DJing for about 18 years. Yeah. Like you have to just, this is what you want, you kind of got to dive in and, there's not really a whole bunch of fallback plans. Like, I'm educated in a couple different things. And, if I have to, like, I'm very adept at like marketing and social media, creative stuff, graphic design, but those all kind of came with the industry that I was in. Cause you kind of have to learn those things just to be relevant and have value, especially like when I was in Kelowna working for the nightclubs, I was like, how do I set myself apart from anybody else? And how do I make more of a living out of this? And they're like, I'd see them getting graphics from guys, from like the guys they're getting graphics from in Toronto or something. And I'd be like, hey, like, how much are you guys paying these guys? And I'd be like, okay, well, if I could figure out how to do graphic design as good as these guys they're hiring, then maybe I can get the club to pay me for those things. And not only am I getting paid as a DJ, okay, now I can get the graphic design money, And then, okay, what are they paying these promoters? Okay, well, maybe if I could figure out how to promote a little bit, I can get paid to do that too. So, also another reason I've gotten some opportunities is because I just kind of try to do everything, if somebody needs a graphic like that, boom, I can make you a graphic. And all of a sudden you got a graphic for your show. And they're like, how the hell did you do that so fast? And sometimes I actually have to sandbag it, like, and be like, maybe take a couple days to produce it instead of an hour, because then they don't know how fast and easy it was for me to do this. But like I said, it's not that the 1 hour is invaluable to me. It's like, I've been doing this for 18 years,
Yeah, for sure. So how important has like your social circle been, like the boys, like the true core group in your kind of development as a successful artist?
Honestly, it's everything. Like, I don't think I would be where I'm at today. And even though I feel like there's so much more to go, the people I'm surrounded with are literally the best people in the world. Like, for instance, Northern House Studios here in Vancouver. I randomly met them because I started renting a studio when I moved here. And it happened to be right beside them in the basement. And I started seeing how cool things they were doing. They were doing like their live stream every Thursday night. And I would be sitting there and I didn't know them from a hole in the wall. And I would literally tune into their live stream from across the way. And they're looking like they're having such a good time. And it's funny to this day that I totally set it up. I'd wait till like I see one of them go to the bathroom and I like walk out. I'd be like, oh, hey, what are you guys doing in there? They're like, oh, we're having a little live stream. I'd be like, no way. Like, I knew damn well what was going on. Yeah. They're like, yeah, like, do you want to come over and hang out? I was like, yeah, I guess I could come check it out. And that's all I wanted was to go check out their live stream.
Yeah.
And that was Bryn Lydell and Dom, still London, that were running Northern House. And that was 4 years ago now. And, I just went there on a Thursday and just continued to go there on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And we ended up becoming like, the best of friends. Like, those guys are my brothers, and they've taught me so much in the music industry and the way they operate here in Vancouver, just by leading with like, good intentions, good heart, never, screwing people over or turning their backs on people. Anytime, you have ill thoughts or, someone's kind of stabbing us in the back, and the industry does get that stuff. And, like I said, it's just about people feeling like, maybe they're being left behind or left out. And, those feelings are understandable. But, when anytime you kind of want to retaliate, be like, oh, this guy said that about me. I'm like, it's hurtful, but I can say that about them. And they're like, no, Jamal, in this industry, we've always had success by just leading with the best intentions. And, seeing the way they operate has like helped me so much. And not that I was like inherently a bad person, gonna say bad things about people, but just to have those grounding people around you to be like, hey, you know what? As long as we stay true to what we do, then nobody can ever really, mess up our vibe. And that's what I've had with them. And then even going back to Kelowna, working with Broken Future and Stunned, and Ben's brother, and Kane, like original Kane, Blueprint, Flipside. Just having those guys around me from these ages too has been really inspiring to always have people in the music industry that were just all in. And I wasn't all in for a long time. I've always been in, but like getting all in was something that was inspired by the people that are around me now.
Briefly met Stunned because I had a hot summer in Kelowna.
Yeah, I bet you did. Yeah.
But he in the short-lived Kelowna days that I was there, he was a down-to-earth guy for sure.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say your vibe attracts your tribe for sure. And like how, like I could already tell, like Ben, you got a good aura about you. Like and I could see how the people that have been involved in your life, like they've came in there for a reason because they've seen great things in you, and you've trusted your gut, and I think that's a real feather in your cap, saying that like you're.
It's wild to see the progression of so many artists that I've been friends with, because like Stunned Ben, like he wasn't Stunned when I met him, he was just Ben, and he was working at a restaurant, when I first met him, either him or his brother, I can't remember. They both look so much alike. Yeah, like seeing those guys, he's been all in with the music since very early. And he'll tell you that technically, like through like the butterfly effect, that he's not even in the music industry because of me, because his older brother was a DJ. And back in Kelowna, I used to do like the corporate thing. Like, DJing was more of a career at a certain point where I would do like, lounges and restaurants. I would just kind of be a jack of all trades, and like, the wedding DJ at times. And so his brother actually worked under my company doing DJ gigs at restaurants and stuff. And Ben told me that got him into DJing. And then Ben started producing, and then me and Ben got closer as friends. And when he started to become Stunned, and so yeah, it's just wild to see like how long this like whole thing has been happening, and seeing where it's all leading us. And it's just really cool to put it all together and see where we're going now, and seeing like how crazy the future could be and how it should be, and how far it's come already.
Yeah. When you're a bedroom DJ, when you're like fresh early days, you have these vivid like dreams of being like, oh, Tomorrowland main stage, or like I want a headline Blueprint event for open for John Summit. Or what was your kind of dream when you like, what was your like, I guess, picture of success?
I think at first when I started DJing, I just wanted to be able to do the clubs and stuff, because like when I first started, I wasn't that great. I'll tell you a funny story about not being that great.
Yeah,
so I remember in my early days, I got booked in a Soyuz to do a New Year's party, because like the people, some of our friends that I knew, their friends owned a club in a Soyuz. And if you know anything about BC, Soyuz is a really small town. So I went out there for New Year's, and probably my first year or two of DJing, and I DJ'd, and I thought I did really well. They paid me decently. And I left, and I remember it was about 4 years later where people were calling from that same bar, and they're like, "Hey, like we need a DJ for New Year's, willing to pay, la da da." And someone came up to me, they're like, "Hey, like they've got this gig in a Soyuz for New Year's," and I was like, "Oh, hey, like I've done that before." And they're like, "Oh, how much does Jamal want?" I was like, "Oh, I'll take $3,000." It was in New Year's, and they got back to them, and they're like, "For fucking that guy." They're like, "He DJ'd here 4 years ago and he sucked." And I was like, "You know what? Fair." Like I was like, that's fair.
Fair.
Like, yeah.
Fair.
I was like, because your first couple, like my first year DJing compared to year 4, like, and so I was like, you know what, that's deserved, But they ended up hiring me, and I went back and crushed it, and got my get back. So
tell me you got $3,000 for it.
I got $2,500 for that one, plus hotels, plus everything.
Okay, so $3,000.
Yeah,
with a bottle,
plus
like a bar tab.
Full bar tab. Hung out, full weekend taken care of. That was the kind of cool thing about the DJ industry I was in before, because I used to do a lot more corporate stuff. I would do some weddings. I would travel around to the small towns in BC and Alberta, and kind of do like that club scene. And was I in the underground scene, or doing Martin Horger shows, or like proper shows where I really like loved the path I was on? No, but I was doing like for me it was really cool at the time, and I do like all music. So when I was doing kind of open format stuff, it wasn't that I didn't play anything I didn't like. Like if I didn't like a song, if I didn't like an artist, if I didn't like, and like I love Taylor Swift, I love everybody, but like if I was asked to play something like that, I wouldn't play things I don't listen to, but I definitely play things I would never play now. But yeah, it was there was a lot of money in it back then. But it was kind of soul sucking in the sense that you just weren't on your path. You know, I kind of felt like, you know, I'd watch the movie The Wedding Singer with Adam Sandler. You know, you do those kind of shows and you're like, you know, when you got brides and them coming up to you, they're like, play this, we're paying you $3,000, you know, like, yeah, I gotta play. Like, you know, you can't play that whereas now, I play like a request would be absurd. You know, if someone comes with a request, you're like, this is the most insane thing you've ever heard, because like, you know, we're paid to play our music, and we're paid to play music that, like, you know, we curate, and it's wild because like, you know, I still do like a wedding or two every summer now, but the kind of weddings I do now are people that have grown up with my sound over the past 4 or 5 years, and they book me to like play what I play. So like I go to a wedding and it's like now we're playing like rave weddings, and which is like, it's really cool to be in that space where you're getting booked for things you want to do, instead of like, you know, back in the day where you kind of just did music to do music. But you know what? That's a path in this industry too, and I'm not going to hate on it. It's just something I couldn't stomach anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. So fair. Where are you at with like producing? Where are you at? Like, where does your
Production.
production,
So,
like where are you at with in terms of your creative process? What kind of music do you make, and kind of that thing? Like, what's the
yeah, so like I said, like, you know, I grew up on hip hop, and so I think it's been a heavy influence now on my productions. So I don't know exactly, like, you know, there's a bunch of genres they talk about that they say that I'm kind of in, but like, you know, the people will say ghetto tech, which is like kind of like a hip hop house remix kind of thing. um I think I'm kind of blazing my own sound right now. I'm kind of like, you know, my productions are kind of in my own lane, but they definitely have callbacks to a bunch of different styles. But you know, I'm probably in the like the 128 to 130 132 BPM, you know, classic house sounds. But I love a good hip hop rap lyrics, throwing them in there. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff I've been doing right now. And with production, it has been such a journey. I really only started taking production seriously in the past 5 years. Basically, when I moved to Vancouver and just before. And I feel kind of stupid about that because, like, you know, my friends from Kelowna, like Broken Future and Stun, they were there the whole time, being like, they were in the studio my whole life, like, you know, well, not my whole life, but for years. And I would just be there with them, like, just sitting there, like, you know, smoking weed and hanging out.
yeah.
And they're just producing and producing and producing and producing. And it wasn't until like they really started getting traction where I was like, holy shit, I might be missing the bus here. Like if I don't get on it, and I was like, maybe I'm too late already. You know, maybe it's too late to get on
Never
this
too
train.
late.
Yeah.
It's never too late, man.
And then I just started getting on the train, and then actually Ben moved out here with me the first year I was here, and then he kind of folded. He's like, you know what, I love Kelowna, I'm going back. And I was like, you know what, fair. He has his vibe there. And then I kind of left the studio for me completely open, because it was actually hard to produce when he was there, because he was so in love with music and producing. He was always in the studio, so like, you know, it was hard to kind of get around him to get my time in the studio, because that's the only place we had. But as soon as he left, I'm not even a 9 to 5. I would say a 12 to 12. Like I was in there every day, just learning.
Yeah.
And thank God I had guys like Bryn and Dom from Northern House, and I would show them stuff in the beginning. I'd be like, listen to this, like this is crazy. You know, Howley would listen to my stuff,
Yeah.
Matt, Kilo, like so many producers, Rustek, and they would listen to my stuff, and they'd be like, yeah, Jamal, you know, it's cool, but you know, you got a great idea, but you know, you need to work on things. And then, even up to 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I'm here, I got it. And then, but I wasn't there, you know, and I'm finally at a place now where I'm showing my music to people and like big creators and big DJs and producers that I look up to, and they're like, holy shit, you know, send this to me, we want to sign this, and like that stuff. And so it's been 5 years of grinding my ass off in the studio. I couldn't tell you how many hours I put in, but can't do the quick maths. It's not 10,000 yet,
No,
but it's
close.
It's up there. And I'm finally at a place where I know I'm ready to get so much more stuff out there, and I'm confident in what I'm putting out.
Yeah, and I think I'm what I see in your production is something like you said, you're blazing kind of a new kind of path. And I think that's in a day and age in today's industry where you can easily say how to make a song like John Summit, how to make a song, and you get melodies like, don't get me wrong, like some beautiful synths off like from like Cream and you get some beautiful sounds from those, but that's not your own sound. And from what I've seen with you is like you have callbacks with I see hip hop influence for sure. I love your remix that you did with Paid with Kanye West.
Oh wow, you bought that one.
Yeah, I love that one. I'll throw it in the link down below. You guys go stream that shit on SoundCloud.
Yeah, that one's done really well on SoundCloud.
Yeah, and I think you blend a nice. And this is just like a very honest review, in my opinion. When I hear your music, I hear like you hear a song like an old hip hop song like Tupac or like Biggie, and like you hear these like songs that are just like smash hits, and then you hear like, but you have a way of blending that with like a modern house sound and like things that you don't really see getting blended together like in today's day and age, and it is so kind of like refreshing in a way that it's like unique, but also like that classic sound, man. It's so good.
Well, I think the cool thing about that is that, you know, there's such a disconnect between the younger generations and like, you know, the millennials and the zillennials or the fucking Gen Zs, that they don't remember, like, you know, they don't remember the old school hip hop, you know, the 2000s and you know, that genre of hip hop. And then if you can, I feel like if I can blend a lot of that kind of stuff in with the new stuff, then like, you know, so the new kids and like the younger generations, the kids who are like 19, 20 now, they're listening to the stuff and they're like, this shit is fire, because they're getting the sound that they want and that they like, but they're getting these dope ass lyrics and dope ass stuff from hip hop. And then the older generations who still love house, because house is so universal right now. And you know, we were all like, everybody always loved house music, whether it was on the radios, like there was always a house music influence in pop culture. And so I'm trying to make music that every generation is like, holy shit, like we can bump with like, you know, with it. And, you know, it'll resonate with some people more because they'll remember the lyrics and they'll remember like the callbacks to old school hip hop. And then the new people will be like, holy shit, this is really cool. Like, what is this? And they're like, oh my God, that's a sample from this cool old school hip hop song. And I think that's kind of been the cool thing, just as being a DJ for so many years, that I was always listening to samples from music back in the day, of like, you know, the 90s hip hop and the 80s hip hop and the 80s Motown, the 60s, like, you know what I mean? And I've been watching, and like, even as a DJ, I was always kind of blending the different generations together and with the new styles. And then now it's really crazy that I'm able to kind of blend it for myself and like even take the next generation of music and kind of bring back the old school touch. So,
yeah. And I've done a lot of research on artists. Obviously that's kind of my job. And I will say like there is a, common denominator in two respects. Number one being blending sounds. Big guys that I've looked up to, like Diplo. Like you hear about his
Diplo's huge. For me,
yeah, and you hear about guys, and you watch some interviews, and like he's picking sounds from like a Chicago, like Bronx, or like even Bronx, New York. Like he pulls such like a rap hip hop scene, and then he blends into like Major Lazer, and then he goes country, and he just blends, and he just is always on a move, and it's so refreshing that you kind of have that, and I think that's gonna work in your favor long term. And another thing is with that kind of like flow of let's say, because there's music is continuously being refreshed. There's a new kid on the block at all times, and always. I think, in my opinion, the industry is kind of moving towards a little bit of like an Afro house and a melodic techno kind of sound. How do you, as an artist and as a producer, how do you kind of stay ahead of the curve of what's kind of hot and what's kind of like pushing the boundaries a bit? What's your
you know what, the Afro house thing is super cool, super hot. Like, you know, I love the sounds. And the vibe is like, you know, it's always been there. There's been like, you know, it's kind of just gone into its direction. And the melodic techno thing, like, you know, these are all callbacks. So the sounds have been there. They're just growing into their own lanes. And that's what house music's always been about. The subgenres are just like infinite. And, you know, and then a new producer comes up, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next 5 years. There's going to be an Afro house guy that likes tech, you know? And then there's an Afro house guy that likes techno, and like they're already kind of blending these things together. So I think the biggest thing for me is I'm not trying to stay ahead of any curves. I'm just trying to stick to my sound. And I feel like if I stay true to my sound, then I won't kind of bastardize the scene. Cause like, I could easily jump on and make an Afro house track or melodic techno track. But if I can kind of like mix Afro house and melodic techno with kind of like my ghetto tech or house or tech house style, then I feel like I'll just be true to myself. And if I just can always keep it fresh, then I don't think I'll get played out. You know what I mean? And because you don't want to start jumping on a trend and then you blow up for a trend and then you just kind of start a new thing. Whereas like you're saying Diplo before, whereas Diplo's just like he was kind of an open format DJ when he came up too, and he just loved music from Brazil, from the Caribbean, and he just started incorporating that all like India, Punjabi music, Bhangra. He just started putting that all together into all of his music. And so now his kind of sound is just everything. His whole sound has just been everything. But like no matter what you hear from him, you always hear callbacks to, or to like his Brazilian Rio de Janeiro sounds. And I think he'll maybe make an Afro house style song, but it's still his sound and his style. So yeah, with everything that's happening, and I got so many friends in so many different lanes. I think my biggest thing is not to get distracted from my sound, just stay with what I'm doing, stay with what works. Because I feel like the classic house sound, like you can go back to some old school house songs from like the 90s and the 2000s and 80s, and like shit still goes crazy. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many songs that still, so I'm just like a true house guy at the end of the day. And as long as I can stick to what I do, I think I'll be ahead of the curve.
You feeling all right? You comfortable?
Yeah.
Good? Comfortable?
Feeling great, feeling comfortable.
Good.
I know I go off on tangents. It's kind of my thing.
It's good. It's good.
Imagine me partying.
Dude, that's a party I want to go to.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you're always welcome. It's always a good party.
I appreciate you. Yeah. From the guy that has kind of climbed through the ranks in terms of like, small town DJs in Kelowna, then you get to Vancouver. Like, what's your recommendations for people to start getting gigs? Or like, is it a networking thing, or like or is it a skill thing? Like, do you got to master the craft before you're like stage ready, or what's the?
You know what? I'm not gonna say anything bad about any DJs in the world, but it's definitely not a skill thing. Because there's DJs that are very amateur and very young out here in the scene and still learning a lot of things that are getting gigs. I think the biggest thing is just your vibe, your energy. If your friends love you, and your friends are like, can't wait to see you show out and get up there. And it doesn't matter if you're the most skilled DJ yet. It doesn't matter if you're staring down at the decks being like, holy shit, what's going on? I better catch that. Like it doesn't matter where you're at. People are there for a community. They're there for a party. They're there for the scene. If we wanted to go to the most technical, best DJ ever, we're going to pay $150 and go to the best festival, Yeah. But like when you're in the underground scene, when you're supporting local, you're supporting the culture. Just if you want gigs, show up to people's shit. Show up to where the underground is. And when I say underground, it's I guess that's kind of like the broad term for the scene. But like the underground is not very underground anymore. It's everybody's everywhere. Just network, go to the shows, go say hi to people. Like I said, say hi to the DJs, there's so many different places. Come to 24K, come to Gorgamesh, go to Lullaby, go to Vantech, go to U+1. I'm dropping all the spots right now.
There you go. Here.
These are all the spots. You look up all these spots I just talked about. Maple Secret Society, Beaumont Studios. I could go on, Northern House Studios.
Yeah.
Like I'm hoping I'm missing people here and don't kill me. Yeah. But show up to these spots and just show love and just be like, just be happy to be there. And work with DJs. If a DJ is like, hey, like, Millie, want to come jam this time or comes that time, it does take a bit of social acumen. It's going to be a little bit tougher if you're a little bit of an introvert. That's just how it is at the end of the day. But you know what I mean? You never got anywhere without stepping out of your comfort zone. So just step out of your comfort zone, go say hi, go show up to places, and don't be afraid to ask. Be like, hey, I wanted to play, I want to DJ, and the worst they can say is no. Yeah. They're not going to say anything worse than that unless you DJ a couple times and completely bomb. But even then, I still like to see a DJ bomb a few times and then start to see him progress. I'm like, let's go. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. Like even for instance, like my boy Harleezy, he was like, oh, like, should I DJ? Should I get into it? I'm like, fuck yeah, like, hell yeah, why not? Like all your friends are DJs, your homies are DJs. Like what do we have that you don't have? You know what I mean? Like get into it. And like now when I see him start ripping shit, like I'll be beside him. I'm like, this fucking guy, like, holy shit, like my homeboy is fucking doing crazy right now. And it's
Yeah.
really cool to see DJs just progress.
Yeah.
And the more you practice, the better you get. And then another way to get your name known is do the work at home, record some mixes, put your mixes out, put them on Instagram, put them on YouTube, put them on SoundCloud, put them on Apple, like put them on Apple Podcasts. It's not hard to get these things out there.
Yeah.
Just get your shit out there. And as soon as people start seeing you really care and you're doing it, then you're going to get opportunities.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's my biggest advice. Just get out there, go say hi to people. And, it's been the same thing for me. Like, I moved to Vancouver and, there was times where like, I didn't feel like going out. I didn't feel like showing up. And it had a direct correlation to like, how popular I was in the industry at the time. And, like even right now, I'm really focusing on production and not focusing so much on DJing like constantly. And, there is a correlation, you know what I mean? People like, and you're not seeing you out as much, you're not seeing you do as much things, then, you're not getting as many of the bookings. And like, I'm at a place where like, my production is more important to me, so it doesn't bother me. But yeah, it is a thing where you do have to be out there to get out there because people don't want to give opportunities to people who aren't supporting,
Yeah. And I was just going to kind of backpedal a bit. You're saying, like, be yourself, be authentic. And, as a man of many talents, like, what's in your heart? Like, are you a producer? Are you a DJ? Or are you a booking manager? Like, what's Jamal's like heart at? Like,
yeah, I'm a DJ hands down through and through. I love DJing. And then that goes hand in hand with production. I feel like it's really the coolest thing when you can produce music and play your own music. It feels really cool. So like, that's the natural progression of a DJ. You love music and you're like, okay, I'm going to DJ. I'm playing all these people's songs. And then you kind of know in your back of your head, you're like, you know what? I really want to play my own music one day. And it's a huge hurdle because like making your own music's not the easiest thing to do in the world. But there's people out here to help you with that. There's barely any producers out there that don't have help with their productions, whether it comes down to just mixing and mastering. Like the biggest thing that, people ahead of me taught me, like Bryn and Dom, they're like, Jamal, don't focus so much on the frequencies and the mixing and the mastering and all the little technical things that make your music not sound perfect. They're like, focus on your creative flow. And once you have a creative like block a song down, then like, that's when you send it to your mixing engineer. And your mixing engineer is like, okay, let me make these sound perfectly. And then the mastering guy makes that sound perfectly. So I would say just don't get caught up on your music sounding perfect. I just get caught up, just get out there and start being creative and then ask for help. And, John Summit, I highly doubt, like, I don't know him close enough, but I highly doubt he's fully mixing and mastering every one of his tracks, like they're big labels. Everybody's sending it to the label. The label's like, hey, this is pretty good. Let us just send it to our mixing and mastering engineer. So everybody's getting a tad bit of help. And like, sure, there's tons of artists out there that like, they're that good that they don't need any help at all. But, when it comes to big labels, big productions, big releases, everybody's getting like, there's just like sometimes with most labels, that's just part of the process. You're not allowed to just send your stuff in and goes right to Spotify. No, it's going to some guy who's 75 years old, who's been mixing and mastering since the Beatles. Yeah. And he's going to make your shit sound perfectly on a level that you never even knew was possible. So, so my biggest thing is get creative, but don't get too caught up on getting outside of your creative process. The mixing and mastering, that comes eventually.
Yeah. From a production standpoint, like what's coming up? What do you got coming up in the new year or in the near future? What do you got? Any projects coming up?
I got a really cool track, a remix with Stunned and Average Citizens of a song they put out that's coming out on Perfect Driver next month.
Okay.
In January. I don't forget things. I don't remember, but you'll start seeing it on my social media pretty quick here.
Yeah.
I should have a song coming out on Hood Politics very soon.
Okay.
Everything's pointing towards go on that. And then also just like local labels. I got a lot of stuff. I'm going to try to put out songs, at least a couple every month, starting 2025. So
right on.
You should start seeing a lot of my music coming out really fast.
Right. So you got 2 songs on different labels and then a lot of maybe weekly or bi-weekly like solo releases. Yeah,
solo releases. I think, a lot of people get caught up on like, hey, labels aren't signing my records. You know what? And the market is saturated as it is in any industry right now. So don't be scared to get your music out there. And a lot of the time labels aren't going to push your music as much as you might want in the first place. Labels have their own, they have like, everybody's got a lot of shit going on. And in this day and age, if you want your shit out there, if you want to be heard, you want to be seen, there's only one person you can truly depend on, and that's going to be yourself. So, look it up. You got ChatGPT, figure it out. You know what I mean? Ask
Yeah.
ChatGPT, what are my best chances of getting my song recognized? What is every little step I can do if I do it all myself? And it'll give you a breakdown, whether
Yeah.
that's making your own Spotify playlist, whether that's putting out your own ads, whether that's paying for promotions, whether that's hiring, paying other producers and DJs like that are bigger than you to collab with you. There's a way for everybody to make it.
Yeah.
It's like how much are you willing to do?
Yeah.
But like it's in your hands if you want to make it.
It's funny you say, if anyone's going to make it happen, like it should be you, right?
Yeah.
And it's like maybe people are looking for a shortcut with like record labels being like,
Yeah.
oh, I got this one signed here. So now my work's done.
Yeah.
And they just expect the outcome. Whereas
Yeah.
like you should be releasing shit and putting that as much effort into it as you would be.
Yeah. Half the time these labels are just flex movements. Like, like, hey, I got a song on this label, so I'm cool now. But it's like labels, it's like goes a double-edged sword because labels don't want to sign you unless you're already getting kind of cool. You know what I mean? Unless you're kind of getting traction. So, like I said, the best thing to do is just if they're not taking your records, if you're getting rejected constantly, which happens constantly, if you're getting people get so discouraged. Oh, I'm sending my songs to all these labels. I'm getting rejected. I was like, how many people are sending these guys records? And I was like, maybe they just skipped to that 20 seconds of your song that just wasn't the best part, or was a breakdown, or
Yeah.
and maybe they're getting 100 demos a day or 200 or thousands of demos a day. They got 20 A&Rs. Like, it's not you. It's really not you. It's just the machine is just so big right now. But like if they're not taking your stuff, just start self-release stuff. Find smaller labels and just keep pushing. Just don't give up. And that's where we're at now. We're just not giving up. We're pushing. And if some cool labels are taking stuff, they're taking it. And if they're not taking it, then we're gonna push it out ourselves, and we're just gonna push it. So
Yeah. To piggyback off that, you were saying that they only jump on shit that's kind of like already cool.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like, but if you're already cool, you can kind of do it yourself
Yeah,
anyways. So it's like,
that's the
what do you
thing.
do? You're like,
and you're seeing people put out songs, and they're like, "Hey, man, like this label's not really doing as much as I want them to do, But I gave them half of my rights and all this stuff. Well, it's like, if it's tough, it's tough. It's really tough to do it all, and anybody who's in the music industry knows it's tough to do it all. It's nice to have help. It's nice to have these people helping you. But like, you ask any artist, hey, have you put out songs with a label where you just didn't feel like you really got like your value's worth from them, or like you signed with a manager that didn't really give you everything you really wanted, or you're signing with this person or that person. Everybody wants to sign with somebody who's cool and somebody who's doing things because that's how they can make some money. So, like I said, the only person you'll ever be able to depend on is yourself. So focus on yourself first, and then then when the right opportunities come your way, you can sign on to them. And there's a lot of cool, like if your dream is signing with John Summit's label or this person, that person, like you'll get there. Like push it. They sign tracks, but just keep going and just keep trying to get your stuff signed. And if it doesn't, just put it out. And put it like do some TikToks, and like that's like I know people don't want to do it, but I'm sorry, that's the game now.
that's the game.
If you want to be seen, you want to be heard. Like they just get your stuff out there. Start making your own Spotify playlists, promote them, produce like boost them. Like it'll happen for you. And as soon as you start getting the traction, then people be like, oh, this guy's got traction. Why not? So just put it out.
As a brand manager,
Yeah.
how do you separate your personal brand management to like a corporate brand management? Because you do a phenomenal job representing yourself as your own brand manager, and the image and the marketing you do for yourself, I think, is some of the best in the game right now. How do you kind of navigate that with like handling other people's management and stuff and tour management?
Yeah. It's hard for sure. Like, like running RX, our events company in the summer is pretty crazy. And then on top of that, I'm doing the social media management for clubs in town, 24K. Like it's hard to find time for all of it, but it's just time management. Sometimes you got to sit there and just make time, be like, hey, this morning I'm going to be on. And like, sometimes you're on your phone or your laptop all the time. It was so time consuming in the summer that I didn't really have a time for personal brand management. And there was times where I was like, man, I haven't even switched the Instagram off of that page onto my own page for so long.
Yeah.
And then I got a show coming up. I'm like, oh, I better go over there and start promoting. But I think, once the summer slowed down and the fall comes and you can start locking back in the studio and you start to get that recognition for what you're doing, you're like, okay, what's really important here? Is it the events that you do a couple times a summer, or is it working on your own personal brand and how you can push it out there? So different times of year have different focuses, but I'm really trying to make sure I focus in on myself and what I can do for the industry and what I can give back to the community personally this year.
And I think it's a common theme too, like to go all in on your own brand. I think you kind of got to put
Yeah.
yourself first,
Yeah.
because you don't really know what opportunities, or you don't want to like inhibit your own success because
Mhm.
you're kind of your attention's out in somewhere else,
Yeah.
in another domain. Sorry.
Mhm.
Um, so that's like really hard to juggle like all those things at
Yeah,
once. And
especially when the other things make more money than your own personal brand. When
yeah,
I'm running events and running all these cool things, it's like that's where the money comes in, and it's like those are a little safer to run, and than instead of having to make content for your own personal brand, and which is super tough. But you know what I mean. If you just people are like when it comes to the content and like for your own personal brand, I feel like there's a big pushback on people being like, oh, like I hate having to do this. My artistry should speak for itself. Well, it's like you don't have to be corny. You don't have to be cheesy. Like some of the DJs and some of the producers, and all the power to them. But some people's stuff can be like, kind of like, cliche or clicky. They're doing like the weirdest stuff on TikTok and Instagram. And hey, if it's working for them, work for them.
yeah,
But if that's not your vibe, just try to find a way to do content while being yourself. And like, people are here for all different types of content. And if there's you feeling like that, that means there's other people feeling like that. That means if you can find a way to promote your content in a more genuine and way that kind of represents yourself, then there's people who will consume it.
yeah, for sure. And it's like everybody thinks they're not alone, but everybody thinks they're like the only one with that like niche
Yeah.
or something. Like you're not the only one that
No.
likes callbacks to like
Yeah.
old hip hop with like a modern day house, and like, but there's people that can't replicate that, so you're offering them that
Yeah.
kind of like
Exactly.
niche,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where you're gonna stand out and build your own community, build that brand.
Yeah.
And that is tough when it's like right now that's not paying the bills,
Mhm.
and so when you have an events company that's offering that income, it's like,
Yeah.
what do you balance? Like it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
so hard.
DJing definitely doesn't pay the bills yet, but a lot of the other things involved in the industry do. So if you're into music, just love it. Just get deep, and you'll be fine. They say if you don't look someone in the eyes, you get 7 years of bad sex.
Oh, I think I just did that.
But don't worry about it because I've cheers a lot of people.
I think I need to get laid first.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not even having
yeah,
sex. Dude.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's crazy. 7 years. I've never heard of that.
Actually, that's a German thing. I've heard that in
Is it?
Germany and Dutch.
I'm actually half German, which is
Prost.
crazy.
Are you German?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
I don't speak German. I did when I was a kid, but I don't remember. My grandparents are like, you used to speak German so good. I'm like,
Yeah.
those days are long gone.
Did you ever try and like implement that? If you have like German heritage, like or like I'm Norwegian, and I always just
Yeah.
had like a gravitation towards things that were like Norwegian. Do you have that in like music sense at all, or like?
I haven't realized it much in music, but like just in like little things I wanted to do in my life. Like my grandfather is like a really crazy beer maker. And like, I love beer, I love craft beer. And I always thought like maybe opening a brewery one day with like, some of his old recipes from the homelands from Bavaria and Germany, that would be really cool. But yeah, it hasn't really touched base in music yet. But I really haven't dived into my European world yet, and I really want to start going through Europe and kind of get influenced out there too. The track I have with Average Citizens and Stun coming out, I actually do something crazy where I switch the whole BPM for a part of the song and it goes into a techno drop. So I'd have a techno, like total techno, because what they really wanted for that song with when you do a remix, they want like, hey, we want something that's a little more Vancouver. We want like, we want a flavor of the underground. Because Average Citizens are more bass house and Stunned is more like, gangster house, deep house. Not deep house, but like just like grimy dark house, And so I was like, you know what? You want Vancouver? I'll give you Vancouver. So I did like kind of like my house remix with a techno drop because I was like, you know what? Vancouver loves the techno and I'm all about the techno too. So
I would never have put Vancouver on a techno scene, but that's dope.
Yeah, Vancouver is definitely this. The underground scene here is thriving. I don't know if people have been to Vantech, Industrial. Like some of these places have really been pioneering the techno scene here, and they're really about that life. And there's just, I feel like with Canada being so open to so much immigration and so much people from different countries, that it's really kind of like, especially the Spanish underground culture is really here. So like the Latin people here are really crushing that scene. So it's really cool.
It's cool to hear guys with like likes of like Hugel, like that kind
Yeah.
of like very Latina or like
Yeah.
Spanish kind of influence. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a cool
The Spanish
scene.
guys here are dead serious. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, they're
that's
really
so
doing
sick.
it.
So sick. So I got a funny story for you. How we met.
Okay.
How we
Yeah.
met. So I think it was my summer of Kelowna, like 2020, like mid
Okay.
COVID,
Okay. Mid COVID.
and maybe even before. And standing in line at this club in Kelowna. Not even a club. It's called. I think it's called Social.
Social 242.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Social 242. I'm standing in line with my cousin, and I just see this guy in a big brown leather jacket, like just like strutting up the line.
Yeah.
And he's like, I kind of give you a sup nod, you give me a sup nod, and I'm like, he's like, you want to get in? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been trying to get in for the last like hour. And he's like, hey, what's your Instagram or whatever? We like exchange. And he's like, hey, meet me in the front 5 minutes. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I appreciate that. And then it's Sugar Pops. And I'm
Yeah.
like, who the hell's a Sugar Pops guy? Like, what's that was obviously prior to
One of my
87 Dove.
previous aliases. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's get into like how did you get? You had a radio station, Sugar Pops Radio. I
Yeah.
remember.
Sugar Pops Radio was crazy. Yeah.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun.
Let's talk through the evolution of kind of your going into Sugar Pops and yeah.
Well, it actually goes from before that was so when I started DJing, my name was Embassy DJ. Embassy. And I don't know where it came from. Well, I know where it came from, but I just thought I was like, you know what? I want to be someone who's worldly because like, you know, I'm from the Caribbean, like, well, not from, but my family's Caribbean and German.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I just kind of want like a worldly sound. I was really heavily influenced by like Diplo and Major Lazer and stuff like that back then. I was like, yeah, I just want to be someone that's for everybody. You know, I kind of wanted my sound to be like the Embassy. You know, this is when you want to be safe in your home vibe, you go to your Embassy. You know, so I was like, hey, this Embassy DJ. So I started as Embassy DJ. And you know, Embassy DJ that's when I started like a Level nightclub and started doing like College Thursdays and doing that thing back then. And then when I started meeting more DJs from like Vancouver, shout out the Dynasty Boys, like Icy Touch, Floetic, and they're more of open format guys, but they've been crushing the scene in Vancouver for years. And I just like was listening to their DJ names and like they just had such cool names and everybody could just refer to them by their name, you know, like, oh, where's Icy or where's Floetic? And they're like, where's Embassy? It just didn't work, you know? And I was like,
didn't flow.
yeah, it didn't flow. And I was like, man, is it too, like, you know, am I too ingrained to switch my name? Like, is that too weird? But I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, you know, let me just switch it up. And then, you know, Sugar Pops came from a Shambhala thing where I was hanging out with like, cause I have a lot of really good girlfriends that are like my best friends in life. Shout out Alyssa and Shanice and Tamara and Lindsay and just like the whole gang, my Kelowna crew. And I was kind of like the rave dad, you know, I'd take care of everybody. I'd always have the totem. And, you know, it wasn't like a, like, you know, weird sexual, like sugar poppy daddy thing. But they're just like this rave dad, you know?
Yeah.
And so I came up with the name Sugar Pops and that kind of was and I did ladies night in Kelowna at Social 242. And so it was just like this cool guy Sugar Pops thing. And like, you know, that was my DJ name for the longest time. And even when I came to Vancouver, I was like, hey, Sugar Pops is like, you know, still the vibe. And, but I feel like the reason I went to 87 Dove was, I just really wanted to lock in on my sound and I couldn't be 87 Dove while still being Sugar Pops because I feel like, especially in the music scene, as tough as it is, you have to lock into a sound for people to respect where you're going and what you're doing. And, you know, if you want to be open format, which is totally cool, like, you know, if you want to play hip hop, you want to play house, you want to play all these things, you know, that's cool. But there's only a certain world for you at that point where I was like, you know, I'm going to have to leave a certain world behind to get into a new world. And yeah, so I did 87 Dove and, you know, it's a very top secret reason why the name is 87 Dove, but okay. You know, if you know, you know,
okay.
If you know, you know, I'll tell you after the podcast and, you know, there's some people out there that'll be able to tell you, but yeah, so 87 Dove was just like, you know, lock into my sound, lock into my thing, you know, no more open format, no more hip hop, no more. And like, you know, I always love hip hop as, you know, it's a big influence on my sound, but I feel like you can't do everything anymore if you want to really get into a sound, you know, like I couldn't be opening for Martin Horger while my name is being known for doing like, you know, a lounge and a night and then you know, like an open format nightclub. And so I just had to really lock in. So that's where the name switch came. And it was scary to change my name. I was, you know, like, you know, when you've been DJing for so long, you're like, do I really have to start all over again? and you kind of do. But I think it's been working out for me. Like some of my old friends, like if you go to some, like when I go back to Kelowna, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna do a show in Kelowna, and I'll be like 87 Dove. People are like, why? Like your Sugar Pops in Kelowna. I'm like, I know, but like I have to be 87 Dove. But like I'll still go to Kelowna and be like, I'll put Sugar Pop. I've done a couple shows there, and it's like Sugar Pops back to back 87 Dove, and people are like, "Oh my God, who's been 87 Dove?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's me." Or like, and then new people are like, "Who the hell is Sugar Pops?" I'm like, "So like if it's kind of if you know thing."
Yeah.
But it is nice to go back to Kelowna and like show love to my roots and see everybody there. But like everybody there has been super supportive, and I don't know if you've been back to Kelowna often, but the scene there is even getting so much better.
Really?
Oh yeah, like with Raised by Raves being there and Rollers Only and Broken Future and Stunned and those guys and just the amount of people they have looking up to them.
Yeah.
It's been really cool to see that culture there kind of like grow. And even though it's not Vancouver, they're finding their own path, and it's really cool to see like how much has changed. Because there was a time where like even like some of the guys in Broken Future, like we have to do the clubs, we have to do the open format thing, and it's like those things pay the bills.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we do, like, I love all music, so like I don't hate playing that music, but it's just like I can't be booked for it anymore just because it's just not part of who I am right now, right?
Yeah. And then you had a lot of side projects I noticed with Sugar Pops. You had that Sugar Pops radio, and
Yeah.
I was tuning into that, and I think you had like a bunch of episodes. It wasn't necessarily weekly, but it was it was bi-weekly.
It was meant to be weekly or even monthly, but you know how these things are. Like when you're starting something like that, it's like life gets in the way, and like I said, if you're not locked in, if you're not all in, 3 months goes by or 4 months goes by, and then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just do Halloween and Christmas and
big time mixes.
like big time mixes. But Sugar Pops was like definitely like I was delving into more of my house music sound, but I wasn't fully there yet.
Yeah.
And but yeah, definitely with 87 Dove, it's like all house, all like it's just who I am now, and it's always who I've always been. It's just I'm not trying to placate and try to be what everybody needs,
Yeah.
And yeah, sure. Do I get the nightclub gigs anymore? Like the regular clubs in town? I won't get those anymore. But do I get the festival shows? Do I get the more locked in events that I want to be in? Yeah, I get those. But like, I don't want to do those things anymore just because it doesn't serve me anymore.
Yeah. Can we anticipate some side projects coming up from 87 Dove that you think that you've kind of debating dabbling with? Or?
Yeah, well, like I think my biggest thing I do is RX, RX recovery at D6. We have our big summer patio event, and that's evolving huge, and we're looking at maybe doing like online radio shows and YouTube shows and stuff like that. I can't release too much, but you'll definitely see.
Sorry, as someone who just moved here, can you kind of? I've seen you post stuff, but I don't really know too much about. Can you kind of dive more into that RX and what kind of that's about?
So what RX is, it's RX Recovery. So we do on long weekend Sundays at the D6 patio at the Park Casino, is we do a top secret lineup, and it's about the local music community, but we also bring in artists like from around the world, international artists, and it's it's a daytime party, and it's like 700, 800 person capacity, and we started it 2 years ago, me, Bryn, and Dom, and it's just like it just exploded into one of the coolest parties in the city, and we've gone up against huge competition, and we've gone up against some like insurmountable odds at times, but the community has always just been having our back because we've just been leading with our hearts and being like, what, no matter what the odds are, no matter what's stacked against us, we're just going to keep pushing, and we're just going to be here for the community. And I think it's probably one of the cooler parties in Vancouver. It's kind of like more. It's what we've done is bring the underground above ground, because the underground's always been kind of like after hours clubs and more deep, darker spots that nobody's been to, or if kind of thing. And we brought that to like a very commercial open venue at one of the biggest resorts in downtown Vancouver. So yeah, the first one, we don't have dates released yet, but follow RX Recovery on Instagram, and those are really cool parties to check out.
Yeah, you can check the description below. I'll tag RX Recovery, and if you're in the Vancouver area or even stateside Seattle, like come up and check that shit out.
That'd and we've had some really cool international artists like come there and do it from around the world. Like we've had Return of the Jaded. We've had Karsten Sollers, like absolute gem, who's originally has connections in the area, and he's just blowing up worldwide. And it's just so nice that these people come back and show love to a smaller community here, because they just love to see just like the community pushing forward the community. And we do a top secret lineup. So like, we don't tell anybody who's playing right up until like, no one knows you have to be there. And it's just been like, it's just been cool because like people aren't coming anymore just because they think it's like, oh, it's going to be this cool person that's going to be there. It's just, they just know what to expect. They know it's going to be a really cool vibe. So they show up and we just try to deliver on that.
Yeah. And it's, in a weird way, it kind of feels more intimate because you can curate a lineup to your people and say, hey, this is what we're offering without them even knowing. And it's, you're kind of coming now from a standpoint. What I kind of like is rather than you kind of putting out a lineup being like, we got these guys, like those guys are kind of selling it versus now like what you guys have built and what you guys have been able to like establish yourself and like embed yourself in the city. You guys are selling RX, not John Summit's name selling the gig. It's not like, you know, I feel like some festivals sell themselves off the guys they book versus the actual event.
Well, like for instance, like if you look at a festival like Shambhala, like half the time I don't even know who the hell's playing, you know, like it's just known as that festival that you go there and, you know, you might think you want to go see John Summit and like, you'll be there for half an hour and then like your friends will be like, hey, I want to go this way for a little bit. And you'll walk and you'll hear some artists you've never heard in your life. And it's just, and you're like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And RX has had that vibe where it's like, people are just so connected to the DJs and just so connected to like the experience that's happening. Is that you don't see a million people with their phones out. Everybody's just dancing. And it's like, it's a, like, you know, I run it, so I'm biased, but it's just it's a very unique experience.
Yeah.
And, you know, my only hope is that, you know, that I can be able to have the time and afford to make sure that the vibes stay the same for as long as we can possibly do it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to that event because I'll be getting a ticket for sure.
Right, let's go. You're VIP, baby. Don't worry about a ticket.
Okay, you got it in 4K.
You are VIP. Yeah. But like, you know, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been there for me along my journey from Embassy DJ to Sugar Pops and just Jamal in general. So thank you everybody for being there.
I love your vibe, Jamal. Thank you so much for your time. Guys, that was 87 Dove on the Audiation Station podcast. We're tuning out. Peace.
Let's go.